Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time. It got pushed back because we did the pick'ems yesterday, but here it is, folks. Eagles Saints Week 3 recap. Let's break it down.
Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles Invictus YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! Come to my channel, you know the deal, yo boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue, think and slate, dropping unrealistic magic, who can takes for the clip? Even though cats like that get views closer to the millie, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal, yo boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way, sports content for the reals that feel the day.
Good afternoon, folks. It is time. Eagles Saints Week 3 recap. We're getting into it. Before we get into it, as always, I want to remind you guys, if you haven't done so, to subscribe to both my channel and the Hardcore Sports Network channel. The links to it are in the live chat, so you can always check it out if you haven't done so yet. But I'm sure most of y'all have already subscribed to both channels, but just in case, there it is. I remember a lot to talk about. It was we went into this matchup last week. Last week we went into this. I said during my preview, I thought this was going to be a high-scoring game. I thought that the Saints were going to win. I even said it was going to be by a score of 35-20 based off the way the Saints offense looked through the first couple of weeks and based off how sloppy the Eagles looked against the Falcons of all teams. My confidence wasn't that high, mainly because of the defense. So that's why I had the Saints winning going into last week. But here we are a week later, more specifically 5 days after I did that preview video. And now here we are. I had the Eagles beating. I had the Saints winning, but the Eagles proved me wrong. Not only did they win, but they won in a low-scoring game. They only won by a score of 15-12. All around, this was a surprising game. We went into this game, early on in the game, first drive, Saints went down, scored a field goal. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm expecting the Saints offense to score a lot of points based off the way our defense had played first couple weeks, because we did give up close to 30 against the Packers, and then we collapsed late against the Falcons. And that whole game, we looked sluggish. We let the Falcons move the ball downfield. We gave Cousins all day. We couldn't stop the run. And here we are going against the Saints, who on paper had the better offense, and I'm thinking, this is not going to be good. But then we go it. First drive, Saints go down, 15 plays, field goal. I'm like, all right, it's only early. Then we go 3 plays, -9 yards, 3 and out. We had to punt the ball. We give the ball back, but we actually stopped the Saints. Okay. So it's like, all right, we did at least get a stop out of it. There's some hope for this defense. And then the next drive, we get the ball back. Hurts throws an interception. We did start to move the ball a little bit, but then we had the interception. As soon as that happened, I'm scratching my head like, oh my gosh, here we go. But long story short, the first couple, I'll put it this way, the Eagles offense was a tease for most of the game until they finally started scoring late, because we had that one interception. Then we had the fumble when we were moving the ball pretty solid. Hurts had that fumble. And then after that, we had a couple turnovers on downs when we were in field goal range both times. But for whatever, Grego, what is up? As always, thanks for stopping by. Always appreciate the support and hope you're having a great day. Like I said, that was a tease most of the game, especially the first 3 quarters. See, like those first half, we were moving the ball downfield, but it was either a fumble, it was a turnover on downs, particularly that first turnover on downs when we were in field goal range. We went for it on 4th down. Even though last week we did this in field goal range and it didn't work out, we did it again. At that point, I was infuriated. I'm like, you have one of the most accurate kickers in the league. You're in field goal range. Why are you going for it when you don't need the touchdown? Just take the field goal. Now, I could understand if the Eagles had a shitty kicker and they were going for it on 4th down in field goal range, but you have one of the most accurate kickers. Elliott was 4 for 4 going into this game. I don't understand why they were going for it. Now, to be fair, he did miss that one field goal late. But at the same time, every kicker, even the best ones, miss field goals from time to time. Even peak Adam Vinatieri missed kicks. Peak Morton Anderson, peak Gary Anderson, who are considered amongst the greatest kickers of all time, had their field goals they missed. So, point is, it happens to the best kickers. Currently, historically, even Adam Vinatieri in his prime missed some kicks. It's going to happen. So I'm not going to hold it against Elliott that he missed that one kick, because it happens. But it didn't make any sense that you were passing up on field goals in field goal range to go for it when you didn't need the touchdown. And if we would have kicked those 2 field goals and say we would have made it, we would have been going into that final drive where we were down 12-7. We would have been up 13-12. And then that final score with Saquon could have just been the icing of the game. So that's something they got to get out of. You got to put more faith in Elliott. Like I said, I would understand if this were like a Billy Cundiff, if you guys remember him, who was an inconsistent kicker. I could understand if it was Mike Vanderjagt who had his inconsistencies during his peak in the 2000s, but you're talking about Jake Elliott. So that was stupid right there. And then we did it a second time to start the first half. We got in field goal range, but we went for it. So at that point, I was good thinking, in my mind after that second failed 4th down conversion, I was thinking to myself, oh boy, I'm going to roast this team on my recap. And I admit I kind of am, but the way the game was going and the fact that we still didn't score any points, we passed up on 2 field goals. At that point, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to roast this team. And then second drive of the second half, we had a blocked punt. And at this point, it was just looking like it was abysmal offensively. It was the biggest tease. It was the biggest tease up to that point because we were moving the ball, but we weren't scoring any points. And then after that, we had a blocked punt. At this point, it just looked like it was doomed. Then we finally got a turnover on downs. And then finally, we move the ball downfield, get a few completions to Devontae Smith. But then Devontae gets injured. He was down after taking a big hit. Pretty obvious it was a concussion. We all saw it. And at that, it's like, oh my gosh. Even when we're moving the ball, injuries. I mean, the point is, this whole game throughout most of it was a frustrating game, most of the game. I mean, it's not so frustrating now knowing the end result, but still. It was an emotional roller coaster is the point I'm getting at. Then finally, we get the touchdown from Saquon. We take the lead. We're up 7-3. Then we give up the field goal, 7-6. We're still up, but I wasn't comfortable with it yet because still plenty of game left. And then the missed field goal, which, like I said, it happens. But at the same time, it's kind of like one of those things of, if you would have just let Elliott kick those field goals earlier, there's a possibility this wouldn't have happened. I mean, part of the reason even that miss could have been a factor of Jake Elliott not getting his practice, so to say, because of all those times the Eagles were passing on the field goals to go for it and being unsuccessful may have played a role in Elliott being a little rusty kicking field goals. So that may have been a factor in that missed field goal late in the game. But long story short, the Saints scored the touchdown. They're up 12-7. I'm like, see, this is why I wasn't comfortable with the lead. And it felt like deja vu all over again. But then We get the big reception from Goddard late. Holy smokes, we're in the red zone. We have a chance to take the lead. And then Saquon gets the touchdown. I'm like, all right, we're up. Now we can get the 2-point conversion so we can at least make it a 3-point game in case the Saints get in field goal range in the last seconds. And that's what we did. We successfully converted. We're up 15-12, but I wasn't happy with it yet because I know how this drill's played out. 3 times in the last 12 months, we blew a lead with less than 2 minutes left, including last week. But, oh my gosh, this time it goes different. We get first pass, second pass. Derek Carr goes for Raheem Shaheed. Pass is intercepted by Reed Blankenship. Oh my gosh, we finally got a stop when we were up in the last minute. And we didn't blow a last-second lead. This is like the first time. Holy smokes, what a breath of fresh air that interception by Reed Blankenship was. It was. And then we milked out the clock. We got the win. There's a lot to say about this game. I mean, on one hand, it was an ugly win. But at the same time, considering the circumstances, being down A.J. Brown, you lost Devontae Smith during the game. You lost Britton Covey, your return specialist, due to a shoulder injury. Lane Johnson had a concussion. Considering the circumstances behind this win, I'll take it. Because we did have the odds stacked against us. Already number one without our top weapon, A.J. Brown. And then you lose Devontae Smith during the game due to an obvious concussion. If he's got a concussion, you can sadly count your bet on he's going to be out next week against the Bucs. But holy smokes, we somehow got the win despite all of that. We overcame the odds and got a win. And Saquon was the hero, like I said, the 2 touchdowns, the 65-yarder, the 4-yard TD run. We can forgive that drop pass last week, which, to be fair, though, I'm not going to solely blame the loss on that drop pass last week. There were other factors, too, but the blame Saquon was getting for that drop pass, it's over now. We can forget about it. He's done good for us. So far through 3 weeks, that was the only notable mistake he made. He was the hero for this one on offense. So thank you, Saquon. And also, we got to give credit to Dallas Goedert, too. Because, yes, while Saquon ultimately will get acknowledged as the hero, and deservingly so, let's not forget Goddard. He was the close second. I would say that Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert were the offensive heroes for this game, if anything, because they both played a key role in us winning. Because Goddard also had 10 receptions for 170 yards, including that long, 61-yarder that set up the Saquon go-ahead touchdown late in the game. So we got to also count Dallas Goedert as an offensive hero for this game as well, because they both played a key role in us winning. So, man, I mean, Dallas Goedert, this is what we needed from him. We know he can be one of the top tight ends. We know he's a top weapon in our offense. We were just waiting for him to step up and have that performance. And he did it when we needed it. He got the big play that set up the touchdown. So he had the real heroic play of the final drive to put us in range. And then from there, Saquon did the rest. So that was great right there. That was great. Man, but we also got to give those guys credit right there. That was excellent right there on the off. The rest of the offense was sloppy. The thing was, we were moving the ball throughout the game, but we weren't converting, like especially in the first 3 quarters. We moved the ball in the field goal range a couple times, went for it when we should have took the field goals. We had the interception when things were starting off all right. We had the bad fumble by Hurts. And that's the thing with Jalen Hurts I've noticed in both our wins is, in the 2 wins, week 1 against the Packers and week 3 against the Saints, what happens is he makes a few careless mistakes early, but then later in the game when everything's on the line, he steps up and does what he needs to. So on one hand, it's that factor of it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And in our 2 wins, Jalen Hurts finished giving his best effort. Even though he started off sloppy, he finished with his best effort. Now, in me, I'm looking at if Jalen could just get his shit together, if he would stop making those early mistakes, imagine how good this offense would look. Jalen Hurts will be back to near MVP form like he was 2 seasons ago during our Super Bowl run if he would just stop with the careless mistakes early on. And that's something that I hope that he can brush up on throughout the season. However, though, look, at the same time, though, hey, he finished strong in both our wins, and that's what counts the most. But at the same time, man, I just do wish he'd keep it together throughout the whole game, because it's that factor of just imagine how good we'd be if Jalen Hurts just had it together the whole game. We'd be doing even better. But so it's like, man, it's a tough win, but it's a win. And considering the circumstances, we got to give this team credit. They were resilient, and the defense stepped up and played good too. When we looked at it, you had Quinyon Mitchell, Jalen Carter. They did their thing. You had 2 pass deflections from those guys. You had Zach Bond was the leading tackler. I mean, this team was just, and the defense did what they had to. They went against the top tier Saints offense, on paper top tier going into the season, and they did what they needed to. Let's take a look at the stats. I'm going to show it to you guys. You can follow the screen. See Zach Bond, 13 tackles, 9 sold. Excellent performance by him. You know, he also had the heroic game sealing sack, or was it sack or tackle week 1? Yeah, it was the sealing sack. And then CJ Gardner-Johnson, he had a pass deflection, including 8 tackles. Nakobe Dean even stepped up and had 8 tackles and a tackle for a loss. To Jalen Carter, 2 pass deflections. No, you had 2 tackles for a loss, 2 pass deflections. Yep. And then Quinyon Mitchell, 2 pass deflections. Like I said, I mean, these guys ultimately stepped up. Even Nakobe Dean, who was considered the weak link, who even I've had my criticism of at times, stepped up and did what he needed to. You got Star Wars 99. Hurts needs to get going. Yeah, exactly. He needs to do that from start to finish. And to his credit, he'll step up late in the games when it matters most, which we saw in our 2 wins, but he's got to be going throughout the whole game. Because if he can ball out 4 quarters and stop with the careless mistakes early, we could be winning these games in even more impressive fashion. And I do feel it's important to point that out, because I do feel as the season goes along, those early mistakes by Hurts he's been making in some of these games could come back to haunt the Eagles in big games later this season, which is why I think he needs to get together, stop with the fumbles in the early interceptions. But nevertheless, though, back on subject with the defense, man, I got to give these, like I said, got to give these main guys props, like Bond, Johnson, Carter, Mitchell. They did what they needed to do. Even Jordan Davis had a few tackles, had 1 for a loss, and he had the only sack. Credit to where credit's due to this defense, man. They stepped up and did what they needed to in this game with all the odds put against them. Great performance by the defense. Now, this is what, to me, Vic Fangio, he's a hot and cold defensive coordinator. When his defenses are hot, they get the job done, and they shut team offenses down. But when they're cold, it can be a train wreck. See what he did with Miami last year. When that Miami Dolphins defense was hot in some of their games, they did good. But when they were cold, i.e., the Buffalo game last season following that Denver domination, it was bad for the Dolphins. Now, that correlates, and now it's always been the case throughout Fangio's career as a defensive coordinator. And with all of his defenses, they can't stay consistent. They're either hot or they're cold. This week, they were hot. And hopefully we keep this momentum going into next week against Tampa Bay. But however, we do need to talk also about the injuries on the offense, because this is a concern going forward. DeVonta Smith, he left the game with a concussion. Now, I haven't heard anything yet specifically about next week, but I'm assuming he's going to be out next week. I mean, we saw the hit on DeVonta Smith, and it was a dirty hit too. However, unfortunately, it's a dirty hit at the worst time possible. You are in a situation where we don't know about A.J. Brown. It's only Wednesday. The injury report hasn't come out yet for Wednesday. And then you got DeVonta Smith out and Britton Covey on injured reserve. That's going to be a concern for these upcoming weeks, especially if A.J. misses another game. You're going to go into this game against the Bucs having to rely on Dallas Goedert, Jahan Dotson, and Saquon Barkley. But we'll talk more about that on Friday. By that point, we'll have an updated injury report, and we'll talk about that more in depth. But these injuries are the one potential long-term concern that comes out of this game. We have to keep it real. But hopefully, hey, AJ Brown comes back. Hopefully Smitty's hopefully he gets cleared. Maybe he gets cleared in a couple weeks and he's back in the offense. But as of now, that is a concern. But so as of right, we'll keep an eye out on it. And we'll talk more about the injury update as time goes along. All we know for now, for sure, is Britton Covey's on injured reserve, and Lane Johnson too with a concussion. Let's not forget that. That's going to affect our line because we know Lane Johnson is the difference maker for this offensive line. So hopefully we get him back soon, though. But overall, for the Saints-Eagles game, to draw a conclusion, I would give this team's letter grade, the overall letter grade for this game, I would have to give it a C. No, I'll give it, maybe I'll go with a B- because we were able to step up in the clutch when it mattered most and win the game. Because to be fair, we did have to overcome, like I said, several injuries, and we did it. We still did it. The defense stepped up in the worst situation possible on paper and got the job done. They deserve credit. Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, like I said, the heroes on offense for the week. Although the things that hurt it were questionable play calling, such as passing up on the 2 field goals when you were in field goal range. And then you also get, right. So that was a knock against them. And some of the sloppy, mainly the sloppy play calling early was the main knock against them. But outside of that, overall solid performance. And the reason I give it a B- is obviously, like I said, injuries. You have to factor that in. But overall, man, good team win. We needed this win. We need this momentum going into the Tampa Bay game. And for the Tampa Bay game, hopefully we'll be healthy going into that one. But, I'll talk about that on Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's going to be my new time slot for the weekly previews for this game. So I'll preview the Bucs game Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, both on the Nikki Stees channel and the Hardcore Sports Network. So you guys can catch that one then. So I said I went through all the main notes I was going to go through from this game right here. So congrats to the Eagles on getting the win. Fly, Eagles, fly. I'm going to do the flap real quickly, folks. Yes, sir. Here, let's push it back a little bit. Get the arms in there. Yes, sir. Fly, Eagles, fly. On the road to victory. We're tied with the Washington Commanders for first place in the NFC East. But it's not going to matter who's actually winning the division until it comes down to playoff time. But it's looking good in the standings right now. And we'll have to see where the Eagles go from here. So everyone that tunes in, as always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for your support. I hope you enjoyed this stream. And I look forward to the next one. If you guys are any basketball fans that are checking this out, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, episode 90 of the Pick and Roll podcast. Main subjects we're going to talk about on that one are Derrick Rose's legacy and his career following him being waived by the Memphis Grizzlies. And we're going to give a roundtable given who we think are our top 5 NBA players with the brightest futures. So if you're a basketball fan, check us out, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Me, Mitch Kofsky, Coach Ed Gladney, Rios from Just Fans Podcast, Blaze Radio, tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going down. So again, fly, Eagles, fly. Shout out on the big win. As always, shout out to you guys for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're not going to catch the Pick and Roll podcast, if you do, I'll catch you in the chat then. So until next time, it's your boy Nikki Stees signing out. Fly, Eagles, fly, and peace.